Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned for a special episode today. I know you guys love my comic book videos. They're so popular, Roger, so here's a comic book video for you. Normally, I would have my reading report up today, but that's getting pushed back. Sorry. It'll be up. It's being pushed back because today I have a special project I'm working on. And my special project is to finally shelve all the Epic collections that I need to put on the bookshelf. And I have a ton of Epic collections that I need to put on the shelves. So Epic collections, big fat trade paperbacks that Marvel Comics has been printing for about 10 years, actually a little over that now. Reprinting their classic comics. I collect Epic collections. They are the exception to my 500 book challenge, actually. I collect Epic collections, and I also collect DC Finest, which is basically DC's version of Epic collections. So those, I get some of those every week, practically. And so I have a ton of Marvel Epics that I need to put on the shelf. I've just been putting it off because it's going to require a lot of work. Let me show you what I mean. So the time has come when I finally have to put all these unshelved Epic collections on the shelf. I've been acquiring them for a long time, and I haven't put them on the shelves yet because it's going to require a lot of rearrangement, which means it's going to require a lot of work. And I've been putting it off, but I've been putting it off for too long, as you can see, because I've got a nice big pile of Epic collections that I need to put on the shelf. That's a lot. That's a lot. So let's take a look at my unshelved Epics, and then I will put them on the shelf. Okay, so you see my challenge. Now let's take a look at the Epic collections that I need to put on the shelf. Let's just take a look at them because, why not? First one is Thor. This is an interesting volume of Thor because this doesn't have Thor in it. This is Thor Epic Collection Volume 24 with stories from 1996 to 1997 that were actually published in Journey into Mystery. So Thor was canceled in 1996 when the whole Heroes Reborn nonsense happened. And unlike a lot of other characters that were canceled in 1996, Thor wasn't brought back right away. He didn't come back for a couple years. So in that time while Thor was gone, Thor reverted back to being Journey into Mystery, the comic book. And Journey into Mystery had a bunch of stories about the Lost Gods, which were the gods of Asgard and what they were doing during that time. And so Thor wasn't in this, although Red Norville, the replacement Thor, was. So an interesting time on Thor. This was 96 and 97. It was interesting, and it's been a long time since I've read any of these stories, so I have to put that on the shelf. I also have Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider, this is volume 2 of Ghost Rider, a series I liked. Very cheesy, very campy, and a lot of fun. Kind of a horror comic book, kind of superhero comic book. It was super popular because Ghost Rider just looks so cool, and he fights great villains like the Giant Eyeball. Ghost Rider, it was fun. I hope they print more. I hope they publish more of these. We're at volume 2, stories from 1975 to 1978. So yeah, we need a volume 3 of Ghost Rider. We need it. We need this whole series to be republished in Epic comic book form. Let's see if that happens. Okay, here we have more Thor. I just got this the other day. This is Thor Volume 25. This has the stories that were published when Heroes Reborn was over. And so this has stories from 1998 to 1999. Thor came back with a #1 issue. His series was started over at #1. And from what I remember, it was pretty good. This was a pretty good run on Thor. I haven't actually read these issues since they were originally published. So Maybe they're not as good as I remember, but I remember them being pretty good. So I'm looking forward to reading this whenever I can get to it. Thor, The Dark Gods, 98 and 99. So we have that. And here's another character I like a lot. It's Rom. It's the original Marvel years for Rom. Rom Space Knight, a comic book based on a toy. Marvel had a pretty good track record with comic books based on toys. You know, we have the best, which was G.I. Joe, probably. But Rom was pretty good. Micronauts was pretty good. Shogun Warriors, not so much. That's probably justifiably forgotten. But I liked Rom. And now Rom is being published in Epic Collections, which is pretty cool. And you will hear me talking about Rom fairly soon on Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Steve Donahue's going to be thrilled. Rom's his favorite character. So Rom. Next, we have some Spider-Man. This is Spider-Man Volume 10, stories from 1977 to 1978. Really cool stuff. Len Wein on the book, Marv Wolfman on the book, and also Ross Andrew, who I think is an underrated Spider-Man artist, did the artwork. And I really liked this period on Spider-Man. I was reading it when I was 6 and 7 years old. Spider-Man was one of my favorite characters when I was a kid. So this is awesome, Volume 10. And that was followed up by Volume 11, stories from 1978 to 1980. So Marv Wolfman's writing the book. Ken Pollard was on the book doing the artwork. Keith Pollard, excuse me. And we even have some Sal Buscema work in here, some Jim Starlin work in here. So this is pretty cool. And this has issue number 200, which I read over and over again when I was a kid. So that's awesome. Got to put that on the shelf. Now we have Moon Knight. There's Moon Knight hanging out with Ghost Rider. This is from the series Mark Spector Moon Knight. This is volume 5 of Moon Knight, which has stories from 1989 to 1991. Not the best period of Moon Knight, but kind of fun. And you got to hang out with the Punisher, which is cool. So Moon Knight. And now we have Iron Man, and the worst period of Iron Man ever. So I just mentioned Heroes Reborn. These are the stories from Iron Man that were published right before Heroes Reborn happened. And this is the Epic Collection that has the final issues of the first run of Iron Man. And during this period, Tony Stark had gone insane and he had become an insane murderer. That's great. And then he was replaced by a teenage version of himself. There he is. I was a teenage Iron Man. It sucked. This Epic Collection sucks, but I had to get it because I have to get the whole run of Iron Man. I have to get it. So there you are, this crappy Iron Man story. Next, this is interesting because this is an Epic Collection with stories in it that were not published by Marvel. This is Aliens, Volume 2, the original years. And the original years were published by Dark Horse Comics, but Marvel is reprinting them because they have the rights to Aliens. And this has stories that Dark Horse published from 1990 to 1992. I really did like those first 2 Aliens movies. All the rest of those Alien movies, not so much. But the first 2 were good. And I remember liking kind of the weird Dark Horse Aliens comics that were coming out right around this time. So yeah, I got this. And more Thor. This is Thor Volume 10 with stories from 1979 to 1980. This was a particularly interesting period on Thor. It's really good. It has stories from Roy Thomas, Mark Grunwald, has Keith Pollard doing a lot of the artwork, and I think it's some of Pollard's best artwork is on this run of stories from Thor. So I'm glad Marvel finally published this. It took them a while to publish Volume 10, but here it is. The Eternals Saga. So that's cool. More Iron Man. This is Iron Man from 1976 to 1978, which was a cool period. From Iron Man, we have George Tuska, Keith Pollard, And Bill Mantlo, I think, did the stories. Yeah, Bill Mantlo did a lot of the writing on here. So yeah, this was a cool period on Iron Man. So there you go. Iron Man Volume 7. More Spider-Man. Web of Life, Web of Death. This is a bunch of stories from 1995. This is Spider-Man Volume 28. And at this period, there were a bunch of different Spider-Man comics, and they were all kind of intertwined as far as the storylines go. So you have a lot of different Spider-Man issues from different Spider-Man comics in this epic collection. So that's cool. Next, it's another Marvel comic based on toys. This is the Micronauts. Micronauts Epic Collection Volume 1, which was actually pretty cool. This is actually pretty cool stuff. This has the first 20 issues of the Micronauts and an annual. And it's pretty cool. This has stories by Bill Mantlo, and Michael Goldwyn and Howard Chaykin did the artwork. And it's a pretty cool looking comic book. It was fun. Micronauts were fun. So there's that. Then we've got Silver Surfer. We've got a Silver Surfer epic collection. The Herald Ordeal. Stories from 91 to 92. And a bunch of people did work on this book, including Jim Starlin. But a bunch of people worked on the comic at this particular time. Then we've got X-Men. Fatal Attractions. And so this is volume 23 of the X-Men with stories from 1993 to 1994. The early 90s, there was a lot of X-Men comics being published, and these epic collections are publishing all of those issues, basically. So that's pretty cool. Early 90s X-Men. Then we have an Avengers epic collection. This is volume 13 from 1982 to 1983, which was a cool period on the Avengers. And we have a crossover between the Fantastic Four, which I just read in a Fantastic Four epic collection. So some cool stuff there. Then we have a comic book I liked a lot. Now, I didn't like everything Marvel did in the 90s, that's for sure. But one comic I did think was pretty good was Thunderbolts. And this is volume 3, which has stories from 1999 to 2000. I like the Thunderbolts, and they're a lot cooler in these old comic books than they were in that recent movie. So the and very different as well. It was a whole different thing. So Thunderbolts, volume 3. I have volume 2 in here somewhere, I think. Here's Captain America, my very favorite Marvel superhero, Captain America, with stories from 1976 to 1978. A weird period when Jack Kirby came back to the book, but in order for him to come back to the book, Marvel had to agree to let him write Captain America as well as draw it. And so you came up with some very strange stories. He wasn't the best writer in the world, Jack Kirby. This is true, but he did come up with some interesting things. That's for sure. So this is Captain America, The Swine, volume 7 of the Captain America Epic Collections. Then we have Marvel 2-in-1 starring The Thing, one of my favorite characters of all. And this is volume 3 of Marvel 2-in-1 with stories from 1977 to 1979. So that's really cool. An excellent period for The Thing. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy. A very different team than you might expect if you only know the Guardians from the films. This has stories from 1978 through 1990. So there's a lot of ground being covered here. Guardians of the Galaxy did not have a regular comic book during all of that time. So this just has all the Guardian stuff that was published from 79 to 1990. So yeah, covers a lot of ground. It kind of goes all over the place. But cool stuff. Guardians of the Galaxy. More Ghost Rider, but this is Ghost Rider Danny Ketch. This is the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider who's getting his own epic collections. I don't know why they just didn't continue it on from the original Ghost Rider series, but whatever. Ghost Rider Danny Ketch Volume 6 with stories from 1993 to 1994. And then it looks like we've got more X-Men. This has X-Men stories from 1982 to 1983. This is Volume 10. This is God Loves, Man Kills. And the main event in this comic book is the graphic novel God Loves, Man Kills. It reprints that graphic novel as well as a bunch of X-Men comics from the time. And this graphic novel is one of the best X-Men stories ever. So this is a great epic collection to have. I just need to put it on my shelf. Hawkeye! We've got some Hawkeye stories from 1994 to 2008. So this covers a lot of ground. Volume 4 of Hawkeye. Hawkeye didn't have a regular comic book series during this time, so it's just a bunch of Hawkman appearances from that time. And it looks pretty cool. There's some pretty cool stuff in here. Then we've got Avengers West Coast, which used to be West Coast Avengers. This is Volume 7, Avengers West Coast, 1992 to 1993. That's cool. This next one is interesting. This is Blade. This is Blade, Volume 2. They haven't published Volume 1 yet, but when they do, it's mostly just going to be Tomb of Dracula stories. It would be nice if they came out with a Tomb of Dracula epic collection. That's really what we need. This has stories from 1991 to 1993, and there's a lot of cool stuff in here. I have to say, it's interesting. Blade, early 90s Blade. Then, here's some more Avengers coming up. We've got the Avengers Volume 12 with stories from 1981 to 1982. So that's cool. But before that, we have Avengers Volume 11 with stories from 1979 to 1981. So this was mostly cool stuff with one story, which really wasn't all that cool. But mostly cool stuff from the 70s into the 80s. Then we have the Hulk. Okay, so this is Volume 15 of the Hulk. This is when the Hulk went gray. And this has some Peter David stories in here. And this has the Hulk from 1987 to 1988. So 1980s Hulk. And we also have another Hulk epic collection here. This is 1970s Hulk into 1980. 1978 to 1980. This is Volume 9 of the Hulk. Which has a lot of Sal Buscema artwork in it. Sal Buscema was a great Hulk artist. He's one of my favorite artists to work on the Hulk, actually. So that's cool. Only a few left. Submariner, Volume 4. Stories about Submariner from 1970 to 1972, which is kind of interesting. So some cool Submariner stories from that time. And more Thunderbolts. This is Thunderbolts Volume 2, stories from 1998 to 1999. So this is cool stuff. More Thunderbolts. And finally, the last thing I have to show you before I put these things on the shelf is Fantastic Four, Volume 11, Four No More. Stories from 1978 to 1980. These were good stories. You had Marv Wolfman writing the book. You had Keith Pollard on the artwork. And then John Byrne. This is when John Byrne started drawing the Fantastic Four. And we just got some cool stuff from John Byrne. Towards the end, we have Galactus reappearing, as Galactus likes to do. So this is actually a really good epic collection. Four No More, the Fantastic Four. So that's everything I have to put on the shelf. Now I have to actually go and work and rearrange a bunch of stuff. So I guess I'll go do that. Okay, finished. I managed to fit, barely, all of the epics on the bookshelf in the hall. At the bottom shelf there, that used to have some things that were not epics on it, but now epics are down there. Eventually, I probably will have to take all of that Superman stuff, that's all Superman on the top shelf, and take it all off the bookcase and start putting epics up there. I don't know what I'm going to do. I probably should just buy another bookcase. That's probably what I should do. But yeah, they're all on there. Mission accomplished.